Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear friends. I hope you are all well. As you know, our future is at risk because of global warming and climate change. Today, we are going to understand these problems in depth from different angles. So, make sure to watch the video till the end. My first question is, why do we need action against global warming and climate change? Listen to the answer of this question by expert.
Global warming and climate change are pressing realities that we all face. That Earth is indeed warming, and that poses a serious challenge to our environment. We rely on this planet for our survival. It's our home, it gives us everything from food to clean air, and right now climate change is threatening that delicate balance. What we need is a real serious effort to protect our planet. That means planting more trees, preserving our natural resources, and making changes to reduce pollution. In short, we have to act now to ensure that future generations have a safe and healthy Earth to live on. It's as simple and as important as that.
Now first try to understand that what causing global warming.
It's not the sun, which hasn't changed much since 1850. It's not volcanoes, which cool the earth for a year or two when they erupt. It's not aerosols. These tiny particles and gases in pollution reduce warming as they cause clouds to reflect more of the sun's energy back to space. It's not changes in land use. The conversion of dark forest to paler pasture, which reflects more of the sun's light, has had a modest cooling effect. Is it ozone pollution? Increases in the lower atmosphere from human activity warm things a bit. Yes, it's greenhouse gases. Rising concentrations of greenhouse gases as a result of human activity are by far the biggest cause. When we compare human factors and natural factors, it's clear who's responsible for global warming.
So at this point we are trying to understand how the issue is occurring.
Global warming is the long-term increase in Earth's average surface temperature caused by human activities, primarily the burning of fossil fuels. It is one of the most significant environmental challenges facing humanity today.
According to experts, the Earth temperature has been in 1.1 degrees C since late 18th century.
This might seem like a small increase, but it is causing significant changes in our climate, weather patterns, and ecosystems.
So, the increase in temperature has caused the melting of glaciers and ice caps, leading to rising sea levels. This rise in sea level is a significant threat to low-lying countries, such as Bangladesh and the Maldives. The rise in temperature also causes more frequent and intense heat waves, droughts, and extreme weather events. These events have devastating consequences for communities around the world, particularly those in developing countries.
If we continue on our current path, the consequences of global warming will only get worse. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change predicts that global temperatures will continue to rise, causing even more extreme weather events, water shortages, and food insecurity. In the words of environmentalist David Attenborough,
we have a responsibility to protect what remains and to pass on a sustainable and vibrant world to future generations.
We must act now to reduce our carbon footprint and transition to cleaner, renewable energy sources. Environmentalist and former US Vice President Al Gore said, "We have to make the choice now to save our future." Individuals can take small steps, such as reducing their energy consumption and using public transport. However, governments and corporations must also take action by investing in renewable energy and reducing their carbon emissions. In conclusion, global warming is a serious threat to our future. The impacts of rising temperatures are already being felt around the world, and if we do not act now, the consequences will only become more severe. We must take action to reduce our carbon footprint, invest in renewable energy, and protect our planet for future generations. As environmentalist Jane Goodall said, "What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make."
Let us now we are trying to understand that is CO2 causing global warming? The simple answer is yes. Burning fuel releases CO2, which trap heat in our atmosphere, raises Earth atmosphere, and consequently cause climate change. However, there are some other gases like methane and other which also play a role. But CO2 is the biggest problem. So, to understand the issue very well, I strongly recommend to keep watching the video till the end. At this point, let me ask you that do you know about greenhouse effect?
The greenhouse effect is a natural phenomenon. Sunlight falls through the atmosphere to the Earth, heating its surface. Not all of the heat remains there, however. Most of it is emitted as long-wave thermal radiation from the Earth's surface into space. In this respect, the gases in the Earth's atmosphere play an important role. For the most part, they allow the short-wave solar radiation through, but the long-wave thermal radiation which is coming from the surface is partly absorbed by these gases, which means that additional heat is stored in the atmosphere, like in a greenhouse. As a result of human activity, more and more of these greenhouse gases are finding their way into the atmosphere, strengthening the greenhouse effect. The additional heat is causing climate change, with the Earth literally heating up, and with some huge consequences for the environment and people. Carbon dioxide has by far the greatest share of anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, which means emissions that are caused by human activity. This mainly arises when fossil fuels such as coal, crude oil or natural gas are burned. To be able to better summarise and analyse the effects of these gases, their global warming potential can be expressed in the form of CO2 equivalents. This shows how much more an individual greenhouse gas contributes to global warming in the next 100 years, compared with the impact of CO2. Accordingly, the impact of methane is 25 times greater than CO2. Therefore, in the first 100 years of its emission, 1 kilogram of methane contributes 25 times more to the greenhouse effect than 1 kilogram of CO2. In Germany, methane largely arises through agricultural livestock farming and the waste sector. The impact of nitrous oxide is 298 times greater than CO2. This mainly arises during the production and use of fertilizers and in the chemical industry. Although fluorinated gases only account for a very small proportion of total emissions, some of them have an extremely potent greenhouse impact. The CO2 equivalent of sulfur hexafluoride, for example, is 22,800. F gases are used as coolants and extinguishing agents, as propellants and in solvents, among others. In Germany, most greenhouse gas emissions arise when fossil fuels such as oil or coal are burned to generate energy. The primary source in this area is the energy industry, for example, the generation of electrical power and heat. This is followed by transport, industrial furnaces, private households, and the commercial, retail and service sectors. Other emissions are caused by the production processes in industry, agriculture, and waste management. If emissions from energy production are broken down and the share accounted for by industrial furnaces and production processes are added together, it is clear that industry, as a whole, is the second biggest source of emissions. All of these emissions intensify the greenhouse effect. For this reason, it is necessary to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases as far as possible, or, ideally, for them to be stopped entirely. Important political measures include a transport revolution, for example, more walking, cycling and use of public transport, a switch to electromobility and, overall, significantly fewer cars and lorries on the roads. More efficient and more economical fertilisation and lower livestock numbers in the area of agriculture. And of course the energy revolution, i.e. the complete phase-out of coal-fired power generation in favour of renewable energies and the efficient and economical use of energy. Fewer man-made gases mean less warming, and every reduction in emissions makes an important contribution to the protection of the climate.
These discussions give us idea that the main gas responsible for global warming is CO2. So how can we trap CO2 from the atmosphere? We can capture CO2 mechanically through technologies like carbon capture and storage. But these methods are very costly. The best and most natural solution is greenery. That means planting more trees and protecting forests. Because plants absorb CO2 during photosynthesis and help clean our air. Let us understand how it works.
Imagine a machine that sucks carbon dioxide out of the air. It may sound like the perfect solution to global warming, and there are machines that can do it. Dozens are already operating on several continents. But the process is complex because the atmosphere is only 0.04% carbon dioxide. The most common method is to use large fans to pull air across a chemical substance, which binds with the CO2 molecules. Then, the CO2 is separated from the chemical agent using heat, purified and stored. Another method is best described as a mechanical tree. The wind simply blows across the structure, and the CO2 in the breeze is absorbed by disks soaked in chemicals. The collected CO2 has a variety of uses. One Swiss company is selling some in gas form to nearby greenhouses, where it acts as fertilizer. But it can also be used in fizzy drinks and for energy, fuels, and material. Right now, it costs as much as $600 per ton to extract CO2 from the air, which is expensive. Over time, startups are targeting a cost of around $100 per ton. But other methods of sequestering carbon, such as planting a tree, cost as little as $10 per ton. In 2022, construction is expected to start in Texas on the world's biggest direct air capture plant, capable of pulling 1 million tons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere every year, the equivalent of 40 million trees. But the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change estimates that we might need to extract more than 100 billion tons of CO2 from the atmosphere by the end of this century to limit warming to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius. We still have a very long way to go.
Finally, we are trying to understand the difference between global warming and climate change.
I don't think people understand just how different global warming and climate change actually are. I used to mix them up too until I realized what's really at stake. Let's break it down. Let's start with global warming. Global warming is all about one thing: the long-term rise in Earth's average surface temperature. It's like the planet's running a fever. The main culprit? Us, humans. Burning fossil fuels, cutting down forests, industrial activities, pump greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, carbon dioxide, methane. The result? Since the late 1800s, Earth's temperature has climbed by around 1.1 degrees Celsius. That might sound tiny, but it's enough to cause big changes. Now, climate change is the bigger picture. Rising temperatures, changing rainfall, stronger storms, droughts, melting glaciers, rising sea levels. Climate change is caused by a mix of natural forces, like volcanic eruptions, solar cycles, and, more than ever, human actions. Here's the simplest way to remember it. Global warming is just the temperature rise. Climate change is everything that comes with it: heat waves, floods, wildfires, and more. And understanding both, that's how we start making a difference.